to In Touch, Think STEM Career Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ayola Fade. This podcast explores the evolving world of science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics in underrepresented community, including Blacks, Indigenous, and people of color, and girls. STEM is important in our community because our health, economy, and future depends on solid foundation and innovation, and our people's participation in the STEM field is important.
Yes.
To inspire and support the creation of innovative solutions for sustainable development that will contribute to the positive change in the BIPOC community for improving the quality of life. And as the STEM field continues to evolve, this podcast will attempt to connect with men and women who are champions of STEM education and career in the STEM field to gain insight into how the BIPOC community can be part of the innovation in the STEM field. Today, I am privileged and delighted to introduce Mr. Larry King. Mr. King is a businessman and a consultant in education. He is the owner of a STEM News Technical Journal and a publisher of STEM News Chronicles, a newsletter with global readership of engineers, technologists, and business professionals, scientists, educators supporting STEM diversity. Mr. King has held a senior executive marketing position with Edison Polymer Innovation Corporation. His career as a corporate executive spanned over 35 years. As a corporate executive, he has worn many different hats, such as serving in strategic marketing planning, sales, business development, and market development in both domestic and international environment. Mr. King has authored and presented technical papers to foreign and domestic audiences in machining application while developing market penetration programs and support services for machining and tooling products in Europe, South America, Asia, and US domestic marketing. In addition to the leadership role mentioned above, involving utility operations, technical marketing, and research, Mr. King has also helped set up productive recruitment strategies, help educators enhance academic program, secure program funding, mentor youths, and plan retention strategy while serving as an innovator and visionary. Mr. King has worked with other executives to develop a model to transfer environmental technology between the federal labs and universities and from NASA to emerging businesses. He currently serves as a select review committee, a member for the Inventor Hall of Fame, and has provided a consultative service on complex public health matters, preventing exposure to toxic substance for the Center of Disease Control related socio-economical and political concerns. So, Mr. King, welcome to In Touch Think STEM Career Podcast, and thank you for joining me to discuss your STEM initiative and your publications. Why don't we start with an introduction? Tell us about yourself, your company, and your publication in STEM science news.
Okay, well, gee, I'm really delighted to be here and to meet you, face to face. We've been exchanging information for such a long time, and it's good to put a face next to it that's can smile. It's really good. Well, gee, I guess to fill in some of the gaps or maybe spaces that were in that wonderful introduction that you gave. I'm a retired mechanical engineer, and one of the hobbies that I have is I like to cook. And you can see it in my bio that I'm pretty well traveled
Yes.
all around the world and across the U.S. I began as an advocate for STEM. Of course, it wasn't called STEM then. About the time I finished my engineering degree at Cleveland State University in 1974. And since then, I've had just so many wonderful opportunities to meet educators like yourself, scientists and engineers all over the globe that are members of groups that are described as underrepresented nowadays. So I'm talking about Black and brown people as well as women in that group. And you know, the common phrase now is people of color. And every time I hear that, I sort of cringe a little bit. You know, so why can't they say Black and brown people? You know, people of color counts green folks. You know, and I'm not sure we want to be included with green folks. But that's a little bit about me. That's a little bit about, and I guess I can share more as we continue talking.
Excellent, excellent. So you are the owner of the STEM News Technical Journal and a publisher of the STEM News Chronicles. And
Yeah.
your journal has and continues to be shared quarterly with over 50,000 readers worldwide.
Yeah.
Across the nation to engage and to expand participation for underrepresented minorities. So can you please tell us what got you started? You know,
well, that's interesting. You know, I was asked that question a couple of weeks ago because the person who was asking the question assumed that I was a publisher, and of course I'm not, but I am. You know, sort of two things. As I retired, I began just networking, continued to network with professionals that I met during my career, and we started exchanging information. Well, that information exchange turned into an occasional blog or newsletter that we were just sharing amongst ourselves. Then that grew into something a bit more formal, wow, which was called STEM News Chronicle, that I published 4 times a year as a digital publication. Wow. Since then, we've grown from those 4 publications into, let me see, 16 different publications that we issue. Wow. We have started a couple of years ago a series of publications called White Papers. Okay. And these white papers feature articles by subject matter experts. Mm-hmm. Whereas, according to the STEM News Chronicle, we're just accepting applications from people who have presented a scholarly article that may not be necessarily an expert in that field. Okay. And the white papers go into a little bit more technical depth in those particular subjects. We also started last year a feature called Guest Writers. You know, in the field of STEM, it involves so many things like education and policy and economics and health and just so many things that I invited a group of 4 persons to serve as guest writers that would basically, from their particular platform, speak about STEM and education as it relates to the larger pictures of policy. Okay. 3 of those persons are here in the United States and 1 is in Germany. Mm-hmm. And I'm currently in the process of lining up the next 4 guest writers to serve for 2023. Okay. Each of those persons volunteer to provide 2 articles each a year on a schedule that they determine, on a subject that's within the general outline of how I described it. and we go with that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
good. Is this a paid? Do you are this employee? Do they become your employees, or are you?
No, everybody is a volunteer.
Okay.
Yeah,
Volunteer.
our newsletters are free for digital download.
Okay.
Okay, the white papers and the publisher's briefcase, which are the set of documents that the guest writers produce. If you want to get access to those, that's a annual premium subscription for $35 a year.
I see. Okay.
So you can go from just receiving 4 newsletters a year,
yes,
into a situation where you're receiving 8 additional publications.
Okay.
Which are much more extensive.
Okay. I was going to actually to ask you or talk to you about the subscription and the different publications.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that you actually covered that. So,
sure.
So what is your vision and your mission for your publication?
Well, I think we just want to serve as a resource.
Okay.
Of information involving science, engineering, and technology. Okay. For those of us like ourselves, yes, that are engaged in the field, yes, that are advocates for more diversity.
Yes.
And we just share information in that regard. We don't get involved in job search activities. That is, we don't put job postings in our newsletter. There are a lot of vehicles and other publications and actually businesses that do that full time. Indeed, all the rest of them. So if you're looking for a job, go there, go LinkedIn and all the rest of it. If you want just some good information about what's going on that you won't necessarily find, come to STEM News Chronicle.
Okay. Are your publication, the material that you publish, more general to the whole entire STEM field, or is it more specific to the underrepresented community? Because I saw a piece about 2 ladies in Australia who actually wrote an article about the disparity when it comes to the employment of women from other countries in Australia, I believe.
Yeah, well, when you're talking about diversity in STEM, you're talking about the people that are underrepresented, the few people that are in the field. So you're talking about women, you're talking about Blacks, you're talking about brown folks, which are Latinos, Hispanics. Okay, those are the people that you're talking about. So we address all of those issues. We don't limit it to, I did not mention indigenous people.
Yeah.
Because, Australians, for example, people that are native Australians consider themselves as an indigenous population. Absolutely. As well as the original Americans in this country, yes, which are indigenous people. So we include all of those. Okay. Now, of course, some of our articles and some of the discussions in those articles relate to the general population. Okay. So when we're talking about increasing more funding for research at universities in a particular area, we're talking about everyone.
Okay.
When we're speaking about the immigration of foreign tech workers, we're talking about everyone in this country that may be restricted from a tech opportunity because someone from China or India is coming into this country under a visa program and working in the field and getting paid less than the normal market would be. Okay. And those people come in through the H-1B visa program.
Yes.
Over 50,000 a year come in. And the companies that bring these folks in, of course, they claim that, well, we can't find people here in the United States who want to do that work. And you and I both know that I'll just use the word that's disingenuous. They're not looking.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
So who are your readers specifically? Are you, I know we've talked about the underrepresented.
Mm-hmm.
Scientists, your reader. What
Oh,
about
we have
those that are not?
scientists, we have educators, we have university professors,
Okay.
we have consultants, we have business persons, we have people that are marketing and selling products and services to school systems, for example, and people that develop new learning devices and systems that are based on computers and all the rest of that.
Okay.
So that's a whole, as well as students.
Yes.
So I should not forget students.
No, cannot. What kind of STEM information do you usually like to share? Or let me be more specific.
Okay.
Do you focus more on the area of new science, technology, or aspects for broadening diversity across, STEAM or technical disciplines,
Uh-huh.
education? Or...
Okay, well, I'm blessed enough to have a group which we call the Editorial Planning Board.
Okay.
And these are 9 or 10 folks that some I've worked with, some I've known for a long time, and some I've just met. Basically, they're interested in the same thing that we're doing, okay, broadening the application. Right. They all have different backgrounds. Okay. And what they do for us is basically things, I think. Well, 2 things I know. They determine the topics for our newsletters and our white papers.
Okay.
They also help identify subject matter experts, example, for white papers, and suggest other areas that we might explore in a publication. So that's the service that they provide. Again, they're volunteers. They meet as a group virtually twice a year on Zoom. And we, of course, exchange information in between those times as well. So to give a direct answer to your subject, what do we cover? We cover as much as we can.
Okay.
Okay. Because there's a lot of things out there that need to be discussed that aren't being well or sufficiently discussed or understood. Okay. And let me give you an example. Educators and teachers leaving the profession.
Yes.
They're leaving the profession for a whole host of different reasons, right? That's true. That's true. And at the same time, that's creating a more of a shortage of teachers. And from our perspective, the area of concern for us is teachers that are certified to teach math and science.
Yeah.
Okay. There are a lot of school systems that are challenged to provide sufficient numbers of 1, resources, of 2, an educator or a teacher in front of the classroom that's certified in physics or math. Okay. So that's a challenge to find those persons. Okay.
That's a real challenge, and that's a real issue.
Right. Yeah. And right now it's getting more of an issue for all the things that you and I both are reading in the newspaper about what's going on in Texas and Florida and every place else dealing with educators.
Yes.
As to why they're leaving.
Yes.
Why their teaching is being constrained for various reasons. Yes. And so that's an issue. That's an issue.
Excellent. So I'm going to change, shift our conversation. So the claim that there is a significant shortage in STEM talents have been the future of STEM workforce policy for quite a long time.
Right.
Matter of fact, this have influenced, uh, you know, the investment from the federal government in education and training, and also labor and immigration policy, as
Right.
well as effort to diversify the STEM workforce. Uh, to give you an example, the FY22 budget outlook, the House and Senate advanced a bill that proposed steady increase funding for most major STEM education program in the United States
Right.
for the year 2022, meeting and exceeding many of the Biden's administration increase requests. The House proposes to a nearly proposal has nearly doubled the 13 million budgeted for the minority science and engineering improving
Right.
programs, which aim to increase participation of underrepresented groups in the STEM field and improve STEM education capacity at the minority serving institution. The House and Senate match the administration request to increase the funding for NASA Office of STEM Engagement from $127 million to $147 million. Within that, both proposed increased both budget for minority university research education by 10 to $48 million, and the Senate appropriators encouraged it to support efforts that integrate indigenous practices in science through educational program for K through 12 public schools and colleges and general public. Now, the Department of Education, no, the Department of Energy, Office for Science, in both houses and Senate has expressed support for the administration proposed office-wide renewed initiative, which aimed to increase participation and retention of underrepresented group in the Office of Research activity.
Yeah.
But even then, there are those that have argued that there are no shortage of STEM workers in the United States. Is there really? Is it true? There is no shortage of.
Well, there
in the United States,
there is a shortage, and on a regular basis, groups, members of congressional subcommittees, technical societies, and corporations come together at various times because there is a shortage.
Okay.
The shortage, from my perspective, is cyclical.
Okay.
For example, in the high tech industry,
okay,
the Googles and Facebooks and IBMs and all those folks of the world. Okay, the way that technology operates is that a program engineer or a computer engineer or a data analyst may move within a particular job unit to another job unit because of technical changes that are occurring in that particular work segment. That person is not necessarily leaving IBM or another company and going to another, or dropping out of the workforce totally. So there's a lot going on of movement just within that particular segment. I'm not talking about automotive. I'm just talking about the tech industry right now. Okay. And so there's a lot of movement that's going on that at various points in time, you see there's a shortage. Now, let me give you an example. There's a lot of interest and activity trying to get more battery design and production for electric vehicles done in this country.
Yeah, that's the new.
There's more a demand to increase microchip manufacturing in this country. Okay, so the federal government is investing, states are investing to build facilities and all the rest of that, because we can't be dependent on Formosa and China and all the rest of it for political reasons.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Now, where are the people going to come from to work in those facilities? Okay, so a lot of these facilities are just either a hole in the ground or some steel going up or an idea in somebody's mind right now. They're not hiring people. But once they begin hiring people, the jobs in an electric battery vehicle plant are going to be not like a job that was on an automotive assembly line. It's going to involve less hand digital manipulation. It's going to involve more knowledge.
Yes.
Okay. And so the question is, where are these people going to come from? Okay. Well, the first wave is going to come from other jobs, other industries that have similar skills. So now, is that going to create a workforce shortage? It's going to create a workforce shortage over here. But these people over here are not dropping out of the workforce. They're just working in a different, see? And so it's those types of things that have to be better understood. The key thing, I guess that's me, is basically too many of our decision makers have bought into the idea that, well, we can't find enough Americans that want to do that work. And specifically, we can't find enough Black and brown people that want to do that work. Okay. And that's just a false belief. They bought into it over the years. The lobbyists that are persuading them to go one way or another are feeding that type of information to them all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. You and I both know that, 30 to 35% of all the Black engineers in the workforce come from HBCUs.
Yeah. And so that actually.
So the question is, if you want to create more Black engineers, invest in HBCUs, because that's where 3 out of 10 are coming from.
Oh yeah, that actually that was actually leading to my following up questions, because I was going to ask you, what is the state of STEM education in our community, the Black indigenous people, and also the HBU schools. I'm glad that you're leading in that direction.
The HBCU schools, investment on the federal side and on the corporate side in the last let me see. I have to go back to the Obama administration.
Yes.
He first, as president,
began
really pushing that. So if you go all the way back to then, now investment began increasing at that stage. Now, most of the HBCUs that were land grant institutions in that particular state, talking about Alabama, Mississippi, not sure about Texas, but there's several states like that the HBCUs there, Tennessee, were land grant institutions, Tennessee State. Okay. So the state received money from the feds to put into all the land grant colleges in that state.
Wow.
Who got the short end of the stick? In Tennessee, it was Tennessee State. In Alabama, it was Alabama A&M and Tuskegee. In Mississippi, it was Jackson State. In Louisiana, it was Prairie View A&M. I mean, not Grambling. In Texas, it was Prairie View A&M. So there's a lot of ground to be made up as investing in HBCUs for a whole host of reasons. And most of them, I guess the primary reason is that's where Black and brown engineers come from.
Yeah, I'm glad that you addressed that, because I was going to also ask you the next, I guess the previous question was connected. I was interested in knowing about the state of the STEM education in our community, but I'm glad that you mentioned that most of the engineers in our community are coming from the HBCU schools.
Okay, yeah, sure.
But if the engineers, if a lot of our people in those STEM fields are or those schools are not being funded properly. So that actually, it's a major problem.
Yeah.
So that leads me to the next question. What do you think about what should be the United States policy on STEM education, especially as it pertains to the HBCU schools and our community?
The HBCUs institutions have a unique role,
Okay.
and they have a whole set of unique challenges.
Hmm.
Their role is basically, as it has historically been, to produce the Black intelligentsia. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Educators, engineers, and technicians, and all the rest. Okay. Challenge that they have is, in many cases, faculty members and department heads at HBCUs, in addition to their administrative responsibilities, many of those men and women also have a teaching role.
Hmm.
Okay, so they're wearing two hats. At one point, uh, uh, he or she may be the head of civil engineering. Okay, but at the same time, they may be teaching fluid mechanics, strength of materials as an instructor.
Yes.
Now, if you look at the major institutions, Rice University, University of Michigan, MIT, the persons that are head of those technology centers and departments, that's all they do. They don't have to teach.
Wow.
Okay. They sit there and do that job, and every couple of years they'll write a grant to get some more money.
Yeah.
To continue that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so that has to be better understood by a larger group of policymakers, so that the policymakers make the investment in HBCUs that can free up some of that. And some of that may be, let me give you one example, creating a center of excellence or several centers of excellence at an HBCUs in partnership with a majority institution.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one example.
That's good. Are you still there?
I'm here, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. So how can, which actually leads to it seems like you're really answering some of the questions that I may have as it pertains to our community and STEAM.
Uh-huh.
One of the questions that I also have is, cultural and race-based microaggression leading to the gender and race disparity in K through 12 and higher education. Um, right now, we know that one of the things that we're all pushing for is diversity, um, you know, inclusion and equity, especially as it pertains to STEAM and STEM, career, college degrees, and all that. Are these solutions, are they working or are they not working? Because it doesn't seem like I mean, I went to your website and I looked at the numbers. And I even read the recent article that you wrote about even in the federal workforce, 26% of women make up the STEAM workforce position in the federal government. But it doesn't seem like that means that their numbers is not even close to that of a man, and the pay disparity is even staggering. Um, but I know that we have been on this thing about diversity, equality, and inclusion, but is it working or is it not working? What needs to
Well,
be?
and I'm going to take you back to the early 1970s. Okay. And this means, right after NASA was going full blow. I mean, we've been to the moon, we're doing all this great stuff. Okay.
Yes.
And people looked up and look around and they say, well, hey, most of the people doing that work, as well as in the area of nuclear engineering, they're all going to be retiring in 10 to 15 years. Mm. Whereas where we're going to get the replacements at, right? So this thing called affirmative action was created.
Yes.
Okay. Quota systems were created. Okay. Now, if all of those things or programs, if they had been as productive as they were intended to be, there'd be no need of diversity, equity, and inclusion today. Okay. Fast forward to 50 years from the initiation till now. Okay. So there's been 50 years, roughly, of an off and on concentration of broadening the workforce to include more women, Black, and brown people. If that effort had been as effective as was intended to be, we wouldn't be creating new DEI positions every week in a new company, okay?
Wow.
We wouldn't be doing that, okay?
Okay.
Now, the reason that hasn't worked, you and I both know that there is this uniquely American condition, racism, sexism, okay? It's part of our culture, okay? It wasn't just created. It was created when this nation was formed, okay? You know, in order to vote, you had to be a property owner. All the property owners were white males. Okay.
Yeah.
And on and on and on. There's a belief that and a belief that, you know, all engineers had to be white males. Okay. They threw that out the window. Okay. Because that's not true. But a lot of folks are still wrapped up in that. So I don't know if I answered your question correctly, but basically, I see these diversity, equity, and inclusion programs really as an admission that what was started 5 decades ago hasn't worked, and we have to change our culture. We have to make some substantive changes, some transformative changes in order to achieve the goals that we say we want to set as goals. So we've got to, we've got to do things differently.
Wow. Actually, I'm glad that you said that, because that led me to the next question as to what can be done. Okay, what can STEM workforce? How can a STEM workforce best be determined and structured? And how should policymakers balance these many factors, as you've mentioned, the racism, the sexism, all kind of ZIMs, right?
Yeah.
To address the issue of inclusion, inclusivity, equity, and diversity. But I think you did mention that it's all a matter of change of, of attitude.
Sure.
So it's
we've got to change our attitude,
So what about in our community? What can we, until that happens?
Okay, well, in our community, okay, right. Good that you're bringing it home. You're bringing it home. Okay, one of the things that we talked about, and the we is the discussions I've had with our editorial planning board, is how can we address in a request for articles. This will be for a publication that would come out next year, 2023. The issue of entertainment and sports being the career paths that our youngsters are being pushed into. that they're being encouraged to move into that because, y'all can sing and dance. So you may as well, go into entertainment and be a rap artist. You guys can do a sky hook, or you can do a great crossover dribble, or run the 100 dash in 9 seconds. So you should go into sports. Okay. Yeah. There are youngsters can do calculus. There are youngsters that can do physics. There are youngsters that can do math.
Absolutely.
They just got to be given the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Okay? So the question is, how do we address that issue? There's only 0.3% of all the high school football athletes that can make it to the NFL. 0.3%.
Really small.
Okay.
That is really a small number.
Okay. Now, for those that make it, hey, you got a great salary.
Yeah.
For 4 years, because that's the average life of an NFL football player. 4 years. What are you going to do after that?
Yeah. Okay. I just had that conversation with my as a matter of fact, I just had a conversation with my son, who is 13, yesterday about on that point. Not to discourage him from,
sure. If that's what he wants to do, right. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But continue, please. Continue.
Okay. Yeah. But that's it. And the same type of thing exists in the NBA. So the numbers are different. But again, it's the same type of thing. If you want to go into sports, great. I encourage you, if you have the capability, if it's in the skill set, do that. Okay. And if you enjoy it, do that. But put something in your hip pocket.
Absolutely.
Like an associate's degree in computer programming.
Absolutely.
Or a certification in marketing. And I'll go to the extreme level. Go through an apprentice program to be an electrician or a plumber. Yeah. Because after your NFL career dies, after your football career dies, plumbers are making $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 a year fixing people's pipes.
Mr. King, King, you will not believe. One day I called a plumber into my home to come and help me with my plumbing issue. Right. And the man told me how much he was making. Right. And I looked at him and I said, I went to school and I spent so much money going to school, I could as well have been a plumber. Yeah, right? He makes more money than I do as a teacher.
That's right. Yeah. Now there's another aspect of that. There's another aspect of that. And that is, okay, you go to college.
Right.
You get your degree in 6 years, or however long it takes you, blah, 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 okay. And you get a good job making $120,000 a year. But you got $400,000 in student loans, okay? Whereas you're a plumber, okay, got his plumbing certificate through an apprentice program. He's making $100,000 a year, no student loans.
Yeah.
Okay. Which way should our sons and daughters go?
I think all
they should go the way their heart takes them.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, they need to understand what the options are out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Right. And I think what you are saying is absolutely correct. Although we do push the STEAM. I think those vocational or apprenticeship training programs, those are also important.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely important.
Sure.
But it is something that needs to be lauded more. And I'm glad that you mentioned sports. What do you think about this? Is a different. This is not part of what I intended to ask you, but I've suggested, encouraging celebrities to be a part of this conversation. How do we get the celebrities? Like, I know LeBron James has built a school, in
Akron. Yeah, I used to live in Akron, so I'm familiar with that. Quite
excellent. And there's another, celebrity that has done the same thing.
Sure.
Um, so how do we encourage more of our celebrities that are, people of color, black or brown, black and brown, to really get into this fight of encouraging our kids to consider pursuing college and career in the STEAM field?
It's
Uh,
it's a it's a it's a tough challenge. There's some of our brothers and sisters out there that are doing quite well on the entertainment field or the sports field. They're doing quite well, and some of them are actually doing that. But at the same time, there's this whole media complex
okay.
that doesn't say it directly, but they won't necessarily profile a biology or chemistry teacher like yourself, as opposed to uh, promoting the next NBA star or the next football star. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so the kids are constantly getting, and excuse me, those that may take offense to this, the wrong message.
Right.
Okay, they're getting the wrong message. Or they're either, let me say it differently, their options are not being adequately and efficiently shared with them as to really what their options are and what this whole game is. Okay. So that's that's sort of it.
Excellent. And I know I have so I have some more questions, man. I'm enjoying this conversation that we have, but I know I value your time and I want to be
I
sensitive.
appreciate it. Appreciate it.
So let me just ask you some couple of more questions, and then I'll ask you if there are something that some other things that you wanted to add. So what my next question has to do with with the importance of tech jobs in the 21st century. Is the focus of K through 12 career education pointed in the right direction? What needs to change in our thinking towards conventional career education?
Well, career education is good.
Okay.
I was exposed, fortunately, to career education in my K to 12.
Okay.
Although it wasn't called that.
Okay.
It was called shop class.
Never heard of that before.
Yeah. In shop class, in the 6th grade, we were building things out of wood.
It reminds me of an experience that I had in Africa.
Right. When I got to the 9th grade,
wow,
I was making things on lathes and drill presses and foundry. I was making things using machinery. Okay, that doesn't exist anymore. Okay, they eliminated shop class. None of the schools have shop class anymore. We didn't use power tools, we used hand tools. But it taught us that there was a connection between shop class and math. We didn't need to ask the question, why do I need to know algebra? I'll never use it. We were using algebra in shop class. Okay, the Pythagorean theorem. That in shop class. So that question we didn't ask that question because we knew that there was a relationship between shop class and math. Okay. Youngsters don't have that option now unless they go to a program that is designed as career and technical education. However, that is more focused in on creating electricians, pipe fitters, masons, or carpenters in high school, as opposed to how we learned it in elementary school. Okay. So therein is the difference. And career and technical education right now is being presented in K to 12 as an option. Say if you don't want to go to a 4-year college and get a BS degree,
yeah.
then go to a career and technical education school, and you come out with a certificate as an apprentice,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go to work in the trades.
So then, how do we build a partnership? In order to, especially with with technical programs.
Well, there is, the career and technical education people,
okay,
and the classical education people that leads to 4-year colleges and all that kind of stuff. Okay. They're in competition with one another because they're each in the same school system. They're each appealing for funding, so they're in competition because they see themselves as serving different populations. I would hazard to suggest that some of the youngsters that are going through career and technical education would be better served if properly directed into going into a college career path, because they've got the skills, they just had to have the opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is a really, but then that becomes
that's a big policy issue.
Yeah,
right.
And definitely I also see the parents component, because I can imagine as an administrator, policymaker, trying to suggest to any child to go in this certain path.
Exactly. Because it's not just the child that you've got to convince. You got to convince that child's parents.
Yeah, the parents.
Okay. Right. And the parents, God bless them, parents want the schools to do everything. Okay. And that's not the role of the schools.
Yeah.
The schools are not there to raise your children. Yeah. You are supposed to raise your children.
Absolutely.
If we're having discipline problems in school, or kids failing because they're not applying themselves, it's not the fault of the education system necessarily. Okay. That nugget, that discipline has to be created in the home. Okay.
And the other suggestion that I was actually given in the past, that I have given in the past, is for parents to do the research ahead of time too. For example, job projection, looking at job projection. Sure. Because we all know that technology is going to be big as we move forward. Mm-hmm. So, cybersecurity is going to be big as we move forward.
Sure, they're going to be jobs that will be a bright job opportunity today.
Yes.
For a youngster that's in 7th or 8th grade.
Absolutely.
Okay, but by the time they complete the next 6 years of their K through 12, 6 years now, the technology would be totally different.
Absolutely, that's true.
Okay. So, there's a saying that a lot of us use when we talk into student groups, and we say to the kids, aim at the heavens, aim at the stars, because if you miss, you're still going to end up in the heavens someplace.
That's my story. That is my story. And guess what? I wanted to be a medical doctor once upon a time.
Exactly. Okay.
But guess what? I'm still a doctor, but a different type of doctor.
I love it. Yeah.
All right. So the last question that I have for you.
Yeah, sure.
How and why could building partnership help address division between industries and educators by engaging underrepresented professionals and women succeed?
Well, that's an open question. That's also a question that came up when our editorial planning board met, and we haven't yet determined how we should ask that question.
Okay.
In the form that it encourages people to prepare articles for us.
Okay.
We can ask the question just as you asked it, but how do we package that to talk about those kinds of partnerships, and then who should be in those partnerships? how can those partnerships function? We are not established, or we don't exist to make those determinations. Those determinations will be made when those partnerships are established by the partnerships.
Okay.
Okay. All we can say is, well, there's a need. You guys need to get in the kitchen and get to cooking and come up with something. Okay.
Thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate you.
Hey, man.
Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you for joining me on In Touch Think STEM Career Podcast. Is there any final words that you want to share, especially for educators, parents, and students that may be listening, that will be listening to this podcast?
Okay. I will say to any professionals that view the podcast, technical side, business side, educators, consider becoming a premium subscriber to STEM News Chronicle. You'll receive all 16 of our issues as opposed to just the 4 newsletters. Give you a chance to network more with your peers, give you an opportunity to broaden your perspective of what's going on in STEM as it relates to a whole host of issues like policy and economics and workforce and all the rest. Thank you for the opportunity, man.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.